Hi, everyone. Sorry, just trying to fiddle with a few technical things. Just went with our new streaming software that's actually free, which is nice. So we've just been mucking around with it. So sorry if you've been watching me hit a few buttons or whatever. Yeah, so that was the reason. So I can actually. Oh, this is. Oh, that's a bit better. Sorry, I had had two tabs, so I was getting myself twice here. Obviously, my mic is working, which is good. Um, so I had very much a big echo in the background. So the more I do these podcasts, the more I'm going to learn. So if you bear with me in these first month or so, as I get better and better at it, hopefully, which is what I usually do with software, yeah, this should hopefully improve as it goes. So hopefully the video and the sound is good. If it's not, send me through a message. I should be able to get those through at the moment. And yeah, we'll get our session going. Look, tonight we're going to be putting in our first screen share with what we call the pillars of conservatism. Then we're going to talk on a couple of subjects that have sparked some interest for me from X this week. If anybody wants to send me through a few questions or make a few suggestions, contributions, whatever you want to call it, we can put it on there. Like I said, for those who weren't with me last week, which right now I don't have a massive viewing audience, but tonight we've got 23 viewers by the looks of it. So that's a nice start. But we're going to go through these until I can understand what the hell I'm doing. And as soon as we do that, I'll be inviting people on. If you want to get onto a podcast and express your opinion, then feel free with me. Feel free with me. Feel free to send through a message to me, and we'll get you on and going. So this is my headquarters, my home office. For those who are with me on the first one, he's gone on. We just had an incident actually at my place. I think my German Shepherd, here he is. If you can see him, I'll get it down there. Come here, JJ. That's my boy, JJ. He just scared the hell out of an intruder. I think he's still calming down a little bit at the moment. So he went off just before, and our front gate was wide open. He was up the street barking at something, but luckily German Shepherds are very smart and very obedient. So when I called him back, he came straight back. But that front gate of mine is usually very much shut, and this time it was wide open. So I think someone came in my front yard, and they met up with the German Shepherd that wasn't too happy that he was there. I'd say it would be a he. So the next thing I know, I think he was running up the street with JJ hot on his heels. Thankfully, he came back when called, so that was nice. So I think the padlock will be going on the front gate from here on in. But it's good to know I've got security. If you live in Melbourne and you're worried about the gangs and someone knocking on your door, all I can say is get a German Shepherd or an equivalent breed. I know they hate these guys that go around thieving places and cars and assaulting people. They actually are terrified of dogs, and I've been told that straight from the horse's mouth. So if you haven't got a German Shepherd, I highly recommend that you get one, a Doberman, whatever, something that'll make these guys think they're about to get their leg chewed off. My boy would probably, well, actually, I don't know. I've seen him a couple of times go off, but I don't think he would bite anyone. But if they start breaking into my property, good luck to him if he does. So anyway, welcome to the Eureka Conservative. To any new viewers, we call it the Eureka Conservative because we're trying to have a bit of a political rebellion about conservative values in Australia, and trying to outline and start building a conservative platform. And to do that, we're putting each week some extra pillars. What we've started to do is we've put in up to last week 4 pillars of conservatism in Australia, because conservatism in different continents and countries is different. So we're trying to give it a unique Australian feel. So this week we're going to introduce a couple of new ones. Last week we introduced justice to our conservatism. I'll go through them. I've got to try and share the screen here. So here we go, sharing that screen. The Eureka Conservative, share. So this is what we're trying to build, the foundations for conservatism in Australia. You can go back through past episodes to see what I put up there about Christianity, nationalism, conservatism. Last week we introduced justice, and this week we're going to go with governance and economy and finance just quickly. I'll go over these more next week, but governance is the type of governance do we want? Do we really want to keep being stuck with the monarchy in England? I definitely think we want to keep our constitution as much as we can to the historical framing of a constitutional monarchy. But I'm having real serious doubts about the monarchy under King Charles and maybe under the future King William, whatever he's going to call himself when he becomes king, simply because they seem to have gone down the old globalism, net zero route. And to be honest, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't think conservatism has left the monarchy. I think the monarchy has left conservatism. The fact that we've actually got a king that spends his whole time as the head of the Anglican Church acknowledging Muslims more than he does Christians is absurd. Another thing that is obviously very big to a lot of people, economy and finance. From these pillars, we are going to be introducing policies, and we're going to try and outline what should be positive outcomes that we want to be able to take to conservative politicians and parties in the future. So that is what we're trying to be sharing as we're going forward. So they're currently our pillars. We're getting close, I think, to finalising the pillars of our platform. If you've got any suggestions or recommendations, feel free to send them through and we'll add them in. The one I want to concentrate on tonight is this one, hope and innovation. That's the one I really want to be getting onto. So they're our pillars so far of conservatism. And with hope and innovation, if there's a few younger ones out there following me, this could prove to be an interesting conversation because basically I would like to start. I've got to get my comments up. Never miss a comment. Click on a chat message. Okay, all right. So we haven't got those comments yet, but send them through. So one of the big things I got in a debate this week about on X, which is obviously my prime social media platform, was the boomer generation and the evils that my generation supposedly have inflicted upon the following generation. So I think it's, I hope I don't offend, but I call it as I say it. I think it's an absurd argument to blame any generation, whether it's the boomers, whether it's the post-World War II generations, whether it's the millennials, whether it's the what do we got? The X generation or the next gen, I don't know, whatever they call them. So, for example, I was born in 63, so I just fall into the boomer generation. The millennials start from, I think it's 64 or 65. So I'm sort of right in between two generations. So, but I'm going to speak out in defense of the boomer generation. You know, there's this theory going out about how easy the boomers have had it and how hard the current generation are getting it, which guarantee we're don't forget the boomers are still alive and kicking. So a lot of us, I'm the boomer, I've got it hard. I've never owned a property. I rent. I have the same struggles that a lot of the younger generation have. I've had 3 businesses pretty much stolen out from under my feet, gone close to bankruptcy a couple of times. I'm starting for a 3rd time to recover it at the age of 61. So I'm no stranger to adversity. But neither were the boomers, or my parents from World War II. Just to give you an outline, my parents were born and raised throughout the Depression years before World War II. And in the Depression years, what many of you don't realise is there was no welfare back then. They couldn't claim unemployment benefits or anything like that. You didn't have the welfare net protection system that they've got right now. Dad used to tell me amazing stories about if they wanted to eat, they had to go out and shoot rabbits. Hence why after World War II, rabbit stew became quite a major fare of the Australian, I don't know what you call it, cooking industry. There'll be better names than that. But, that's what we ate a lot. Rabbit stew was something we always used to have. And that was one of the reasons, if you wanted to survive back then, you had to actually go get your own meals, not from a supermarket, but actually out on the farm block. And rabbits were a pest, so it was a bit of a pastime to go out, shoot a few rabbits, bring them back in. And that's how you got your meals. It was quite popular. So that was before World War II. After World War II, things got better. But so, for example, for my parents, they never had their 20s. Their 20s were in the Depression years, and then Dad had to go off and fight in New Guinea against the Japs. So, he didn't have a youth like we've all been lucky enough to have, and Mum sat and waited for him. And also with Dad, his parents died at a young age after they'd had their kids. Now, when I say have their kids, back in those days, it wasn't unusual for families to have large families. We were a Christian culture, and part of that Christianity, especially on the Catholic side, was to have large families. So in our family, we had 10 kids. Now that sounds unbelievable now, but back in when we were growing up, that wasn't that unusual. I know families that had 11 kids, 12 kids. There was one that had 14. There was a couple down the road from us that had 8 or 9. So it wasn't actually unusual. So they felt that way. Dad explained it to me. He was doing, which is something we've definitely lost. He was trying to do the right thing by the nation to ensure they could build the population, which, all those opposing mass immigration, one of the arguments, I know Charlie Kirk in America makes this, is we should be producing kids. We should be going back to the old traditions of getting married young, having kids, having large families. So for now, that would probably be about 5 kids. But to make sure we weren't reliant on immigration to replenish our numbers and grow the country and population, which then has a positive effect on the economy and our ability to take care of our elders as they get older, and to provide some things. The larger the economy, the more productive the economy is, the workers in the economy, the better you're going to have on financial outcomes. So Mum and Dad thought it was their patriotic duty, their Christian duty, to have a large family. Dad had 11 kids in his family. Mum had 9, and their goal was to beat Dad's side. Now, one of the tragedies of that, though, is Dad, from what I understand, Dad's mum died young after the last child, and the dad did a bit of a runner. So Mum and Dad were left to raise their kids in orphanages. And what they did during their 20s, when Dad was off at war, is when Dad got leave, he and Mum would come back. They'd go around to all these different orphanages, collect all Dad's brothers and sisters, and they'd go to the footy or the films, go have a picnic with Mum's side of the family. So Mum and Dad actually raised the family before having a family. We only found out about that. They never whinged about it. They never whined about it. Actually, they probably never spoke about it. I only found out much later in life when Mum and Dad were having a celebration. I think it was of their 50th wedding anniversary, I think it was, because I'm the second youngest of 10. So it was a while, and a lot of Dad's brothers and sisters came down, and me, being an ungrateful bastard, started to whining what a grumpy old bastard Dad had been in my time and been raised up. So I'm sympathetic to what a lot of the young ones think today, but you're wrong, because I was wrong. I found out the story behind Dad. Dad was a proud man. He didn't whine about it. He had he didn't want to be a victim. He just got on with life, so he never really talked about it to us kids. He never talked about his war experiences either. So they did all this for Dad's brothers and sisters, and we didn't know anything about it. If I had have known more about Dad's upbringing, I would have known why he was a grumpy old bastard, at least to me as we were growing up. But from that period on, I had far more respect for him, what him and Mum went through. Now, they had 10 kids. Dad used to work his ass off. I mean, he would go away for weeks at a time. They lived in the country down at, I can't remember the name of the river. It's a country town in East Gippsland on, I think, Can River. They used to live down there. Mum had no stove. She had one of these wooden stoves. She had to do all the washing and cleaning and all that. So there was no electricity there. They had zero. And Dad would go working on farms at some stage. He was a manager of a dairy farm. From his war years, he was a bit of a sparky. And he would go away for weeks at a time and leave Mum with the dogs and the kids. and they were running around barefoot and crazy, But from all the stories I've heard from those kids, they didn't have much. We did, in fact, right through our time, we didn't have much as kids. We never ever complained. It was just what we knew. Looking at it now, I'm just wondering whether a lot of the kids would actually survive in that environment. But Dad would go away, come back. He had to work 2-3 jobs just to have enough money to feed the family, put a roof over their heads, and get them through school. To Mum and Dad's credit, they got us through school. Every one of us through private school. 3 of us went on to, not me, 3 of my brothers and sisters went on to get university degrees and do very well in those university degrees. The rest of their children got good jobs, all got married except for me, and had kids of their own. So, Mum and Dad left a legacy. I mean, when we were growing up, we grew up in East Malvern, we grew up in Bensdale, Zeehan in Tasmania. Dad was driving taxis after coming home all day at work on construction sites. He was a builder, and this was in the 70s when the building industry was really struggling. So he would come home after a hard day's work on the building sites, get in the cab and work till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Then he'd be up at 5 and he'd be off again. He had kids to feed and get through school. Mum would go to work in a laundry. Now, a laundry back in those days is not like a laundrette these days. That was hot, hard work. You didn't have the electrical machines they had then. It was actually labour, and Mum would do stuff like that. She eventually got a job in a museum working as an assistant, which was a lot easier work for, a bit better pay too. And Dad, we had to shift over to Tassie in the mining industry because it was a lot better pay, and we got a company house. So Mum and Dad never owned a house until they were in their probably 70s, and they had finally bought a house in Bensdale down in East Gippsland as well. That's where our family was based, and I was raised for the first part of my life. So they never had anything. So, and that story is not uncommon. So there are a lot of people in the boomers age that did well for themselves, no doubt. And no doubt there's a lot of politicians through that era that made decisions that have made life today harder for a lot of people. But you can't blame a generation for the evils of their politicians. A lot of those decisions our politicians made then, they didn't ever discuss them in an election, just like they don't discuss them these days. All we can do as electors, as voters, is to vote for the best possible politician, knowing that they're probably lying to us, and that if they follow through, you should be grateful, and hopefully they don't add anything extra. For all those that are anti-Trump, that's one of the reasons I love Trump. He said what he says, he does. You don't have to like the man. You don't have to like the way he goes about it. But he's one of the few politicians on the planet that will follow through with what he's doing. He said he'd stop mass immigration. What he's doing over there in America now is taking that on. He's taking on corrupt governors like Newscomb. I love the way he gives them nicknames. And he's following through. If only we could get a politician who is that honest here. So, if the younger generations want to tag us with the politicians of our day, they need to be careful, because the politicians that they're following, millennials and Gen Xers, and I don't even know what they call them nowadays, Gen Z, your politicians are doing a far worse job than what our politicians did. And our politicians weren't great. They probably did sell us down the river a little bit, but not a little bit, a lot. I get all that. But you still got to have hope. You got to have innovation. You've got to find different ways of getting what you want in your life. And your whole life is going to be striving for that. If you're waiting for someone to pick you up and deliver you to your goal, you're going to be waiting for a long time. Life's not easy. Like I said, I've had 3 businesses stolen out from underneath my feet. I built those businesses up from the ground up. I worked my butt off, and some nefarious people who weren't part of the boomer generation, the following generations, stole those out from underneath my feet. Hopefully third time I'll have learned enough not to do it. Now, to the young ones, the only advice I can give out there, and I can see there's a few messages coming through. I'll get to them in a minute. The only advice I can give out there, rather than slagging off at your boomers, is why don't you talk to us? Why don't you actually ask for advice? I put a tweet out the other day. Funnily enough, when I got in arguments, you get a lot of responses. I actually put out a tweet with a bit of positivity in it, and I invited younger ones to DM me if they needed to, and get a mentor. Someone who can tell you what pitfalls to look out for. what mistakes we've made, how for you not to get it. I got slammed the other day, funnily enough, because I said I would give away in a heartbeat everything I've got to go back to when I was 20, right now, because I know now, no matter what the politicians do, and right now there is no better time to be, I don't think, be young. You've got everything at your fingertips. If you're still looking for your 9-to-5 job and you can't master a keyboard and a laptop and an internet connection and actually start your own business, get some innovation, educate yourself. And that doesn't mean university. You can educate yourself. These days, the information is at your fingertips. In fact, if I had kids these days, I'd be getting them to do an online degree. Don't go to university. Don't get indoctrinated. I coached at a university for basketball for 2 years at Melbourne University. I saw the pitfalls of going to university for your education. Don't get blindsided by these things. I know it's not easy. I know it's got tougher. There's a lot behind that. But to point your finger at the boomers generation and call them selfish is just unwarranted. If you've come into this conversation later, I'll publish these so you can listen to my arguments. But I know what my parents went through. I know what my brothers and sisters went through. I know what I've been through. And it wasn't easy for us. We had our hardships and our difficulties. I still continue to have my hardships and difficulties, as do a number of my brothers and sisters. I tell you the one thing that I'm grateful, though, for the generation I lived in, we had parents who taught us resilience and how to bounce back. You can't put a whole generation into that. One of the reasons I'm starting this podcast is because I feel that there's a necessity for us to start talking to younger ones and start giving them some guidance and hopefully some leadership and build there are better things ahead of us than are behind us. I'm a big believer in that. But the thing is, we've got to grab those things and not wait for the politicians. I was listening, for example, to Malcolm Turnbull and Matt Keane on the Propaganda channel of the ABC. That'll be, when we get to policy, that'll be our first policy. The first cab off the rank is to sell the ABC, because it's a communist program. So, a lot of the leftists, and let's call them a spade, they're Marxists and communists, a lot of them. And Marxists and communists are the biggest hypocrites. They believe that the government should be in control and we should all be serving the government, unless it's them, of course, because then they'll own all the property and all the wealth and all the pensions that they get. But us little serfs, have to serve their thing. So, there are better ways of going about it than listening to those. And I think you've got to get a conservative platform. I've been around long enough. I've landed on a conservative side of things. And I think I was talking to a young player I used to coach the other day. We caught up. Now, when I say young, he was 42. And he's done his own reading, and he's went from being we got our first comment. Yeah, didn't I? Sorry. There was a way I could put these comments. I'm going to try and see if I can figure it out. No, that's not it. Definitely just got a comment from, who is it here? Bags. The boomers had to suffer through the problems of Keating being treasurer and then PM. Well, hell yes. And we also, don't forget, had Gough Whitlam as well. So, and Fraser was a pretty much do-nothing prime minister. The boomers, you don't realise how bad it got under Keating unless you were here. I mean, I had a brother-in-law that ran his own milk bar. Us boomers know what a milk bar is. So for you non-boomers, a milk bar was what's today's version of a 7-Eleven. And he was running his, and he had his own house. And in those days, the interest rates were ridiculously high, and they just kept going up and up and up. And Keating bizarrely boasted about it. He had the hands on the levers, and it was a recession we had to have. He would go on the TV and actually be smiling while businesses and people were going bankrupt. So, very good point, Bags. So, we went through our times, but young ones out there have got to start trying to get mentoring out of us older ones. Seriously, we can help you out with missing the pitfalls. We can also help you out on past history. We can help you out on how you fight these things. We can help you out where you should land politically. We can exchange views. You can put something towards us and we can say, well, that won't work. How about you try this? I did have, if he's listening, one of the younger ones, I think Mr. F, he calls himself, something like that. And he sent me through an article he wrote, and he obviously followed my things, and I'd written a bit of articles and just asked me what I thought about it. And I put an idea in his head, and he's gone, yeah, actually, that's a good point. So the whole point of communism, of Marxism, is to divide the society so you're fighting with each other, so you're not focused on what's really important. And you younger ones are falling for that. You're getting into this argument of fighting the boomers instead of joining the boomers, because we hate a lot of these governments and politicians as much as you do, maybe more, because we've seen, in fact, I will argue we hate them more, because you're right, in the 80s and 90s, we had some great decades. I'd even argue the 70s. 70s and 80s and 90s and probably the early 2000s were the greatest time to be an Australian. From, I would say, about 2005 onward, when Howard, to try and keep power, started to buying into all the renewables and net zero and Paris Accord and Kyoto agreements and all that sort of rubbish, things started to change. Definitely after the Iraq War, things started to change. And the Iraq War, I think a lot of Western nations, because of what we did, we know it was wrong, felt guilty, and that's why the borders got opened up for immigration from the Middle East. And that's why we're having these mass immigration problems to this day. We should never have done it. We've done it now, and we've got to change it. So one of the ideas behind the platform, Bags is going. Sorry, put my glasses on, guys. That was it, the recession we had to have. Bags, you're younger than me. If you had your mum and dad through that time. It was a shocking time. But having said that, Keating didn't last long. Now, this is where the boomers got it right. This is where the current generation, I think, is getting it wrong. If we had a bad government back then, it got voted out. Now, Whitlam was a bad government. It got voted out twice in a landslide. Don't fall for this nonsense about, the Governor General, whatever. The Australian public could have voted Gough Whitlam back in. They massively voted him out, not once but twice. Fraser won in 2 landslides. Then Fraser deserved to go. Fraser was just a puppet Liberal. Could have done a lot more, didn't do much at all. And Bob Hawke came in. But Bob Hawke was smart. He governed like a Liberal Prime Minister. And under the Hawke-Keating governments, a lot of the problems that you're talking about, you younger ones that we've got today, were instigated by them with the floating of the dollar and the opening up of trade, all that sort of thing. So that a lot of that stuff got signed off by them. Keating signed off on the land rights issue that now has led to Welcome to Country and all the Indigenous stuff that's going on instead of bringing us together as a nation. Howard had his faults, but overall Howard was a pretty good manager, as was Hawke. So throughout the 90s and 2000s and even the 80s, outside Keating, we had pretty good governance, especially when you compare it to today. Now, it had its faults, but what we did is we voted out bad governments and put in better ones. I don't think we can say that anymore. And on the defence of the younger generations, I don't think we've had that many options for good governance. Abbott, I think, would have been a very good Prime Minister if he was given the chance, but then we had Turnbull. We haven't had much since. I mean, who we had to vote for? I do feel for Dutton a bit. He shot himself in the foot. He ruined himself this last election. But with Dutton, I think he had bad people around him. But even still, he probably should have lost, but there's a side to me for everyone complaining about how bad it is. Why did everyone vote back in Albo? Probably the worst politician I've ever seen in my lifetime. We've voted for him twice now. Sometimes, what's the old saying? Electorates get what they deserve because that's who they're voting in. Now, Dutton wasn't great, but he would have been better than Albo. I mean, he actually had some policies to address the cost of housing. He had policies to address overseas ownership. He had policies to reduce immigration. He didn't go far enough on any of these, but he had some, more than what you could say for Albo. He had policies to address our rising energy cost. So he had a few there. So we've got to try and find and encourage our politicians to become alternatives. We've got to look for the hope. And sometimes it's really hard to find that hope. So that's one thing that I am really hopeful that I can get through on this podcast. So you younger ones, don't get... Australia can still be a great country. It's never going to be the same as what it was, but it can still be great. And the people who can make it great are you younger ones. But I'd suggest you're going to make that initiative a lot easier if you start listening to the older guys. So Bags, born 71, you're a millennial, mate. Good man. You were raised by good boomers, obviously. So, to the younger ones, it's your future. You can decide it. You can get motivated. The example for you is the Greens and Socialists. They actually hate them to death. I hate them for what they've done to the country. But the one thing I give them credit for is what they've done in getting organised. So here we go. I think I can show some comments now. Here we go. We got Bags up. So we can show you some conversations if you want to get them through, guys. I told you I'm trying to figure out these podcasts. So, yeah, I'll get there one day where I'll become the perfectionist. So whatever you do, don't give up hope. And one part of having hope is to being innovative. So, for example, what's been in the news lately is Musk. There is a man who is on the younger side. He's much younger than me, but if you read through his life and what he's achieved, it is actually incredible. He should be the example for you younger people. Don't just get settled for a 9-to-5 job. Find something that you're really good at. You've got to have two sides if you're going into the politics side. You've got to, if you're going to be doing, for example, what I'm doing. So, you've got to have your time away from politics. So whether it's starting a business, be getting involved in a sports club, having a hobby. You could be, for me, for example, it's my faith is a big part of it. I run my own company now. It's not. I've only just started it, so I hope it's going to be good because it's going to pay my retirement if I can get it right. So just find something you have a passion for and be happy getting up in the mornings. And if you find something you have a passion for, you're probably going to be successful in it. My advice, if I had kids now, is be your own boss. Don't be someone else's person. You know, a lot of people get complaining that they're only earning a certain amount and the medium wage. Well, reject the medium wage. Come up with something that's going to bring you in a better wage. Then start getting actively politically because that's going to help you on that side of things. So, you know, hopefully through the conservative, the Eureka Conservative and the platform that I'm going to try and build, and, you know, I want to draw in people to do it. We can put forward a platform to politicians and try and get somebody to represent us and what we want. And hopefully I can convince a lot of you younger guys and girls to jump on board with what we're doing. We'll be doing that by organising, once I've got these podcasts sorted and up and going, some events throughout Melbourne. But once it's up and running, we'll take those events, you know, hopefully in the state and have them elsewhere, because what we're going through as a country is nationwide and we all need to be helping each other. So there's my rant on the boomers. That's my defense of us boomers, you boomers out there. And one thing for the boomers that were successful, I've never held a grudge against anybody for being successful. I think that's just a tall poppy syndrome thing we've got in Australia. Don't hold a grudge against the successful person. Find out why they're successful. You know, if you can discover why they've been successful, you can make yourself successful. So the politicians don't dictate our lives. We have control of our lives still, and we've got to make sure that's what we've got. And we've got to make sure that we bring, for example, I also see a lot of young ones who are, anti-immigration. I'm opposed to mass immigration. I'm not opposed to immigration, and I am supportive of immigration that builds our culture. That's another thing we'll be identifying, and doesn't have their own culture that they're coming in. Now they can have connections to that culture, but they've got to accept an Australian culture, and we've got to define what that means. And we've got to bring people like we did with the Italians and Greeks on board to that culture. Sorry, guys, if I'm looking off to my left. I'm looking at the screen, but the camera's obviously in the middle. It's it's a little off-putting, but I'll get used to it one day. So if it looks like I'm looking actually to the right on my camera notes, I'm not. I'm actually looking at myself on the screen, and all I can see is my eyes looking the other way. So, like I said, new to this podcast thing. So we got another comment here. Sorry, guys, I need my Bags is killing it. Percy, though, Abbott would have been fairly good as PM until we sort out the non-citizen ownership of land, of housing. Things are going to be very hard for the younger generation. I agree. Losing the manufacturing industry in Australia was a really bad option for us. I believe it was Whitlam that signed the UN paper for industrialising the third world. I had that raised with me a week or two ago. I'd love to blame Whitlam for a lot of it, but this is the Lima Accord. I think you're talking about bags, but there's different perceptions of that as there are with anything. So I read up on it a little bit. If you look deeper into it, he never signed off on a commitment. It was apparently, I don't know enough about it, but it was more an intention. So it wasn't like the net zero and like Albo and that idiot Bowen's got with the net zero stuff, excuse me. It was certainly dropping out trade barriers. I'm not too sure, this free trade movement where it makes a lot of your industry uncompetitive so you can get in industries overseas. You pick and choosing and winners there. I'm not too sure that was the wisest thing to do, but has it got our exports up where we can export our iron ore, for example, which a lot of people have benefited from? There's lots of arguments to and both ways. So that's something discussions I'm looking forward to us having going forward. Bags is just killing it. He's got more up here. Oh, no, he hasn't. Same one. Sorry, Bags. We're doing pretty well. I'm just going to get rid of the overlay. I'll read out Bags. He's the only one on there. So who's commenting. I'll read them out from here on in. So if you've got any questions or discussions, feel free, like Bags is doing, to send them on through. We got 50 viewers there now. That's a record, 51. So pretty pleased with that. Last week we had one or two. So hopefully when we get some guests on there, we'll go from there. Other interesting subjects today, or I should say this week. So that was the Boomers was one. The riots in LA are holding sway. It was interesting. Albo today trying to say that journo who got shot was wearing a helmet and had ID on it. Well, every person who's seen the film, the clips, knows that that's an absolute lie. Politicians lie, but I don't think I've ever seen a politician lie as much as Albo does. He's got to give him credit. He's good for it, but he lies so much. They're bad lies. I mean, everyone can see him for a liar that he is. So you just cannot trust a single word that man says. Hence, again, my bemusement at why people would even vote for him. But we can get into our preferential system later on. But, he won with, I think it was 34%. The Liberals got 31, close to 32%, yet he still wins with a vast majority in the parliament. How that works out, I don't know. But those rights, I'll give you the heads up, they're coming our way. And just like in LA, they're waiting for an opportunity. If we ever get a government that's committed to freezing immigration and deporting illegal immigration, we will have those same rights on our street. And just like BLM, as sure as night follows day, we will follow, especially the leftists, will follow America's example. So it is only a matter of time before, and I think it'll be worse, you're going to get a lot more people out there waving anything but an Australian flag. The only time you probably see an Australian flag is when they burn it. I think we should get ready. Those events are coming to our streets. The difference between Australia and America is America's got Trump. So he will deal with these people, and he's already dealing with them. I'm not too sure how we're going to go. Our premiers and prime minister, I don't think will deal with it in any way in the same way they dealt with the COVID protesters. And how obnoxious is this by the media? They're getting all bent out of shape about, oh my God, a journo got shot by a rubber bullet. Where was that sympathy for all the COVID protesters that caught a rubber bullet one after the other before they got kettled into the shrine and then they were assaulted with more rubber bullets? I don't think we're in any position to accuse any other country with moral judgment or, sit over them with our moral judgment when we know better. Albo, when he was representing citizens of this country, do you recall Albo ever saying anything about the police using rubber bullets against his own citizens? I don't recall it because he didn't do it. And same thing goes with the media. So there's a bunch of things on that have to go on. So interesting this week, Kennett, and his stuff about John Pizzuto and the Liberal Party having to pay John Pizzuto's legal bills. I say screw that. Kennett, I admire Jeff Kennett. What he did back in those days for this state was amazing. I will never begrudge him his what would you say? His credibility on being a good premier. He was not a good premier. Kennett was probably the best premier I've ever seen. I was too young with Bolte. From all accounts, Bolte was an amazing premier. But Jeff Kennett was the best premier I've ever seen in Victoria. Now, as all Liberal leaders do, John Hewson, to his credit, Howard hasn't gone this way as much. But Kennett, Turnbull, Fraser, before he died, they all start leaning left for some reason. I don't get it. But Pizzuto dug his grave. He's got a lie in it. If I had legal bills to pay, I wouldn't be getting people like the Liberal Party or their funding group to pay them out. We've got an election here next year. We've got to get rid of this Allen ALP government, not just for one term, but for 5. We've got to get rid of them for 20 years. We can't let them back into power. We've got to turn things around in this state. So if you're in Melbourne, follow me, get in contact. We will have some events, and we will definitely be trying to do things down that track to give us some purpose. I have hope for Brad Batten. The fact that he's got behind Maura Deeming, I think, is a sign of hope for us that the Liberal Party here could finally get its act together. Now, I have a bit of a different view on the Liberal Party, and definitely with the miners. The miner experiment, there's some really good people in the minor parties. And I've got to know a few of them: David Limbrick, Jordan Ditloff. I think Pauline Hanson is a hero. Should have got the award that they gave to Morrison. But the minor party experiment, I think, is doomed for failure. I hate to say it. Australia doesn't have that many voters. We cannot dilute the centre-right vote as much as we're currently doing. I think that was a key component in Albo winning the last election. It won't get talked about by the media because it's inconvenient. They want to promote Albo as being this master politician, and they want to demoralise the LNP, the Liberal Party and National Party. The National Party were on the right track by divorcing themselves from the Liberals. Then they jump back in bed with Satan. So the Liberal Party, we've got to discover one of two things with the Liberal Party. Can you stack their branches with conservative-minded people and get the party back from the moderates? If that's achievable, I'm going to find out. And if that is, then we've got to get off our butts and do exactly that. We can sit here and whine all day about the Liberals, but at the moment, they're the only other major party that can defeat Labor at the moment. The only other alternatives, if that's not feasible, then a new Conservative Party's got to be started, and we've got to encourage the current Conservative politicians inside the Liberal Party ranks to break away. I've already written a letter to every single federal member, MP, and also the people that nominated for the last election to split from the moderates, because the moderates are ALP and they're every bit as bad. So that is the course of action we've got. What I want to do is not slag off at everyone. If you follow me on X, you'd probably find that a bit weird. But yeah, I do get in fights with a lot of people from my own side of politics because I just find it to be so negative. So I will call it as I see it, which means I lead to me being a bit of a hypocrite. I apologise in advance because I can go down that negative road too. But I want this podcast and what we're doing to be more positive than negative, and to come up with some ideas that can make this country better, to put together a conservative platform and give people a proper conservative ideology and political choice going into the next elections, both at state and federally. So that's a big job. So I think it's going to take a whole bunch of us to be able to do that. But don't underestimate a grassroots movement, what it can achieve, what Reform achieved, what MAGA's achieved, and before that, the Republican Tea Party, what they achieved, which led to MAGA. So, Trump was the natural leader of that, but he didn't start those movements. They were all grassroots movements of people that had just had enough. So if you're like me and you've had enough, you're in the right place. So, it's gone nearly 50 minutes now. We've got 57 viewers, which is fantastic. I love that. Hopefully we can keep building on that. And like I said, if any of you want to, and I'll get it up here in a minute, if any of you want to come on board with the podcast, and you can send me some ideas for what I should be talking about. You can send ideas on those, the pillars, which I'll be writing about this week, by the way. You can also send me a DM if you want to actually come on board, and we can invite you on as a guest and we can have a conversation. Any ideas you've got to improve the podcast, I'd be happy to hear. What I'm really keen on doing is recruiting some young ones. And for anyone who's see you, Bags. We'll catch the rest later on. Yeah, good, mate. See you, bud. Be like Bags. Give me a few comments. Especially younger ones. It's your country. It's your future. You've got to have more hope. We've got to get more innovation going. We've got to give younger ones a better future, and we've got to give them the same future that our forebears gave us. So I think if the boomers don't do that, then people can be critical of us. But we've got some time to turn things around. So as Bags has to go off, he's been summoned. I don't get summoned except by where is he? There he is. There's my boy. He's coming over. It's mealtime for him as well. So I better go. Hey, great to see the viewership up. Hopefully we'll keep this going. Spread the word. Get more people on board. We'll make this bigger, better, and better. Even bigger and better moving forward. And like I said, we'll get some guests on and talk about a whole bunch of different things, have a bit of fun, and go from there. If there's any younger ones who know how to do a live stream from different areas, I am aware that I need probably some more people. This is all done at the moment voluntarily, at least. So if you want to get involved and help me out from doing that, I'm pretty good around the tech stuff, but I don't think I can do the live stream here from the office pretty easy. It'd be nice to get out, interview a few people whether it's out in the street and include that as part of the podcast. So if you want to get involved and help spread the word, just let me know. The more the merrier, and the bigger the movement we can make this, the better. So that's it from me tonight. We've added, I think we're up to 7 pillars. We might put one more in there, and then we start on policy from the following episode. So hope you've enjoyed the watch. Hope you've enjoyed babbling on. Bags obviously did. If you've, oh no, that's from this mob. Tell me what you thought of this live stream software. That'd be nice. Make sure I'm on the right track. So I was on StreamYard. This is what I'm doing here now is Restream Live. Restream. Sorry, got to get these glasses on. No, just Restream. So Restream, if you're ever going to get into live streaming, Restream, this is the free version, which is not as good as your StreamYard. StreamYard was going to cost me at least $20 a week, which I can't afford at the moment. For their recommended version, it was $35 a week. So, my God, that's a fair bit when you can do a YouTube live stream. So I looked up a few others, got onto Restream, and this is actually the free version. So I can go to the pro version at $19 a month. So there's a huge difference. So something I'll definitely look into. So hopefully it's all come across as well, really good. If it hasn't, let me know. In the meantime, I will see you all next week, same time, every Tuesday, 8 o'clock. And we'll keep, like I said, making this bigger and better and get more positive as we move forward. Anyway, that will do for now, everyone. Good night. God bless. And we'll see you next Tuesday.